Hi folks, it's Andy. Welcome to this week's Kendo Rant. Okay, here we are again, another week of Kendo Rant. We've got some great questions for you. We'll jump into them in just a second, but don't forget, all the YouTube stuff, like, share, subscribe, help people start Kendo by helping this channel grow, because lots of people, they see this channel, they weren't doing Kendo before, maybe they were interested in something else like sword fighting or something like that, whatever, and then video games, whatever, and then they see this channel, maybe not a video like this, but they see this channel and they look at it and go, oh, what's that? Kendo, that looks cool. And then they start Kendo. And that's because you liked, shared, subscribed, whatever, and helped YouTube promote it to those people. So do it. Most importantly, though, support the channel by shopping at KendoStar.com. That's my website, of course, that sells amazing, fantastic, wonderful Kendo equipment. It's brilliant. Of course, I'd say that, but you can check out how we're reviewed. Look at our Trustpilot rating, that's independent. And obviously, look around your dojo. I bet everyone's using KendoStar by now, to be honest. So, yeah, right, let's get to these questions. Right, first one's quite a long one. This was a YouTube comment. It says, "Hi Andy, I want to thank you for answering my question in Kendo Rant." I know it was not an easy one. So this must have been from a question from last week. But I really wanted to know your opinion, and I understand. I understand what you're saying, but I think, in my opinion, you're a great inspiration as a Kendo practitioner to motivate not only me, but everyone else to practice Kendo and walk this amazing path to become even better. Well, I don't know about that, but thank you. I want to say that you also give us great advice in every question we put here, and always here to help us improve. And KendoStar, this amazing website, never fails us in our time of need to get this amazing gears and shinais for everything else we might need in order to start always strong and better in Kendo. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. I didn't write this one, I'm just saying. Okay, so really grateful from the bottom of my heart. Well, thank you. I'm really grateful for your support as well. The question I want to ask is... and bring to you are, what kind of training would you recommend besides Suburi in order to work our body to become stronger? For example, maybe jogging or running, or maybe going to the gym to work out every muscle in our body for Kendo. Is there more complex training that I can do in order to prepare for Kendo practice? What do you recommend? What kind of training do you do? The other question I wanted to ask of you is regarding the Dodai. For example, if I choose the Yamato series for my Dodai, will the Dodai, besides the colour we choose, will it become more sturdier itself, like from the outside and the inside as well, more strong and more durable? Will it last longer as for longevity? As for we doing the maintenance ourselves to preserve it better? And what about the other Dodai series? Will it be the same? Maybe it's a weird question. Okay, it's quite a long question. All right. So the first question was what training to do other than Suburi to help you improve at Kendo, and what training do I do? The next one was about the different types of Dodai. What kind of, if it affects the durability, or is it just the color? And then the next one is another question. In my 32 years, I know I have a long way to go, and we're always learning every day in our lives, but can I still reach a higher level and go for the championships or to the nationals, even if I practice a lot of Kendo and put all that I got into it and dedicate myself full-heartedly? Another question is, will you have, again, in KendoStar website, a Borga stand so we can put the Borga after practice? Would it be better... Would you think it's better a Borga stand that is made of wood or steel? And the last question is to take the smell of the Borga. What do you recommend? Just letting it air after practice, maybe isopropyl alcohol to kill the bacteria. Will it damage the Borga? Or is washing the kote the only way, like you show in the video? Or will it not fade the colour if you do so? Thank you again for the everything you do, from KendoStar to YouTube videos, and your knowledge you always share with us. Okay, so thank you very much, first of all, for the very nice comments. I very much appreciate that. Right, let's get into these questions, okay? So you can probably tell I don't always read these questions before I start filming. So the first question was, what training do I do? Or what can you do other than Suburi? So yeah, going to the gym is helpful. It's definitely something that I benefit from. whether it's some cardio training that can definitely help, but also strength training, especially, you know, you mentioned that you're like 32, so you're still kind of young, but once you sort of start getting into your 30s, once you get sort of over 35, you know, it becomes more and more important to prevent injury as well. Things like calf raises, maybe holding weights and calf raises, stuff like that is super helpful. Don't overdo it though. Squats are good. I mean, all you want to do is sort of general all over all body workout, but other things to concentrate on. I like to do wrist curls with dumbbells, just to give me sort of more strength in my wrist and forearms as well. But you know, you do need to do everything nice and balanced. You don't want to off balance your body. That's super important too. Okay, so that's definitely something. And then, of course, Jigeiko. Jigeiko is super important. You have to really keep that in mind. Also, that's watching practice, so watching good Kendo and trying to copy it. My other question I wanted to ask you is regarding my Dordai. So yeah, so the Dordai, about the different types of Dordai. From a durability point of view, generally most of the synthetic Dordai are pretty much equal in terms of durability. Okay, so none of them are stronger or weaker or anything like that. The only exception is the 50-piece type ones or the 60-piece type ones or the 64-piece type ones. They tend to be a little bit thicker, so they do tend to be a little bit more durable, rather than the plain type ones that you sometimes see, like the one that we have with the Vanguard V2, the basic V2, because obviously that's the one that's had a lot of the features stripped back in order to get the price down for you. And it's one of the points in which the V2 and the original Vanguard is a sort of step up from that, in that you get that 50-piece Dordai, which is a little bit more durable and a little bit more protective. The next question was, you know, so even though you're sort of 32, you've got a long way to go and you're learning every day, is it still possible to reach a higher level and go for the championships or the nationals? Yes, it is. It absolutely is. There's no reason why not. You can definitely apply yourself really hard. And, you know, if you really dedicate yourself, yeah, absolutely, you can still do that sort of thing. You know, joining, so it depends where you're from and what have you, but, you know, like something like joining your national team, something like that might be a little bit on the tough side, if I'm honest, at that point. But it's not, I wouldn't rule it out. Some of the most successful Kendoka in the world were still performing at the very top level, even into their sort of into their early 40s. So now, granted, they've got a very different infrastructure than most of us have got access to, but it is possible. But it really is down to your own sort of commitment and perseverance. Okay. And then about the Burger stand, I'm not sure if we're going to get it back. I know it's been reasonably popular, but the pretty hard, they sort of go in and out of stock quite a lot with the supplier in Japan. It's always a steel one. We don't do the wooden ones. They go in and out of stock at short notice with our supplier in Japan, which is quite difficult for us to deal with. From our point of view, they're very expensive because they're quite heavy. So they're very expensive for us to import from Japan, which means that the price that we have to put them out at is quite high for what the product itself is, which makes me feel a little bit uneasy. So I don't massively like that either. It's one of those things, really. It's not a product I'm a massive fan of for those reasons. I don't use them myself. For my own burger, I have a shelf for, and I store in that way. But yeah, that's where I sort of stand on that. I don't think it matters if it's made of wood or steel though. And then the question about taking the smell out of the burger, just make sure you take it out of the bag after practice. Don't leave it in the bag. Try and air it out as much as possible. I don't spray mine with isopropyl or anything like that. I've heard people do. If you're going to spray it with stuff, just be careful not to get it on the menbuchi. That's the hard part around the grill or the cage. Washing the kode is definitely a way you can do that if they start to get a bit smelly. But yeah, if you do it too much, they will start to fade. And then that's it. So yeah, I hope I cover them all. And yeah, thank you very much for your kind comments. I really appreciate all of that. So yeah, that's a comment from YouTube. Right, next one. Owakigamai. I think you mean wakigamai. Okay, so first it's wakigamai. Okay, wakigamai. This one. The katana edge facing upwards or downwards. Can't find a consensus on it. Okay, you don't need to find a consensus on it because the All Japan Kendo Federation have actually put it in literature for us. They put it in black and white. It faces diagonally downwards and away from you. All right, it's not downwards, it's not upwards, it's not sideways. It's diagonally downwards and away from you. All right, the video and the book says that. All right, so that's what you have to do. It's not a consensus where you would have more senseis thinking one thing and the other. In that case, it's literally written out as a correct way to do it. Okay? So if you don't do it that way, you're doing it wrong. Do you have a consecutive attacks in Kendo or just one chance, one well-performed strike? No, we definitely have consecutive strikes. It's called Nisandan Waza. So you might strike Kote and then follow that with the men strike. That's a Nidan Waza. It's two-step technique. You could do Kote, then men, and then Do. That's Sandan Waza. Or you could do men and men. That's Nidan Waza, Tsuki men, Kote Do. There's quite a few of these consecutive attacks. So we definitely do have consecutive attacks in Kendo. Okay, next one. Might be a bit of a throwback, but will you ever bring back Kendo Gamer? I loved watching them and the longer topics you talk about. Yeah, so occasionally I get this comment like asking me if I bring back Kendo Gamer. I've had it a couple of times, especially since I was on the that YouTube series for IGN, which is like a video game like website. It's quite a big one. I was on that on there, and like is it Experts React, I think it's called. They asked me to sort of react to some of the sword work in Ghost of Tsushima. It's one of my favorite video games. I was hesitant, obviously, to be called an expert, but you know, I think it was a good thing to do to try and help sort of promote Kendo a little bit to an audience that might not know about Kendo. I don't know if it worked or not, but yeah, I used to do a channel called Kendo Gamer. I put a couple of videos up on this channel with it, and I had a different channel for it in the past as well, where I do enjoy playing video games. I'm really not very good at them. I don't have a lot of time to play them these days. But you know, it's something I started while I was still over in Japan, actually, when I first started up with KendoStar, as just a way to connect with everybody a little bit more. I know that there's a lot of people in the Kendo community that like playing video games as well. And I'd sort of play video games whilst sort of live, not was it a live stream? I think we live streamed them, and talked about Kendo as we was doing it. It was quite difficult to do. and yeah, I mean, like I say, I don't know. I'm not sure it was that popular. I know there's a few people that liked it, but it wasn't a massively popular series of videos. So I'm not sure if it's something I'll revisit in the future. Again, it's not something I don't really have much time to sit down and play on video games at the moment, either. Though I would, you know, I'd like to do it. It was fun doing it. I enjoyed it. So maybe it's something I'll do again at some point. But probably not in the near future. Okay, next one. Hi Andy, I'm just curious how you start each practice session. Our sensei has us form a circle, but he says it's an older Japanese way that's not widely used nowadays. The idea was that everyone has something to learn from others, mostly not what not to do. Okay, so I think what you're talking about is when like you do the gore at the start, when you do the day at the start, doing it in a circle. I have seen that a couple of times outside of Japan. I've never seen it in Japan. I don't think I've seen it once in Japan. So yeah, I don't really like it, to be honest. This is this week's controversial take, I think. I do it in the conventional way, which is to line up, in sort of grade order pretty much, with the teachers on one side and the students on the other. I think that's the correct way to do it, and I prefer doing it that way. I prefer to do it that way because, and here's the controversial part, is that Kendo has a distinct hierarchy within it. Unfortunately, in the West, at least, certainly outside of Japan, we have we only really have grade as a sort of way to distinguish these hierarchies between each other. Whereas in Japan, it's a little bit more nuanced. It's not just on grade. It's about lots of different things. It's probably more on age than on grade. But also it could be sort of people's relationships to each other as well. So it's a really important aspect of Japanese culture. It's a thing they call a joge kanke, that sort of social hierarchy, and it is, in my opinion, and this is the controversial bit, I think it's kind of inseparable from Kendo, and I think it's a super important part of Kendo. I think if you try and dilute that or remove that hierarchy structure from Kendo, I think it removes some of the essential elements of what Kendo has not to offer, but I think it removes the ability for some people to progress, for everyone to progress properly in Kendo. I think it's a really important and integral part of it. So yeah, I get that's a controversial take for people that probably aren't, based in Japan or have sort of grown up outside of Japan, and obviously I grew up outside of Japan, but I did a lot of my Kendo in Japan, and for me, it was one of the things I realized was how important that system was to Kendo. I really do think it is important understanding where you sit in that hierarchical system, who are the people that are above you. It doesn't mean they're better people than you, of course, but they are your senpai or sensei or seniors, and then there's the kohai, the juniors that are below you, and that whole structure, that whole system, is just too important to be removed from Kendo, in my opinion. So yeah, I know that could be a controversial one, but that's why I don't like the circle thing. I don't like this whole everyone has something to learn from others, because I don't think that's necessarily true. I mean, it is true, to some extent, but it's not in a literal, a complete literal sense, right? Someone who's fifth dan isn't going to learn how to do the zare better from someone who's just started Kendo, for example. Yeah. So they have to be the example, and they have to be senior. They have to understand that that's their role in the makeup of the dojo. And that's important for that person's development, as well as assuming that role of the senior and assuming that role of the junior, and then acting accordingly. It's very difficult. I understand that, but it's I think it's super important. Next one. Any tips for beginners on things that think about when learning Jigeiko, other than trying to perform their best waza with Kikentai no Ichi? Not really. With beginners, when they start doing Jigeiko, I think the best thing is for seniors is to mainly let them just do a sort of modified uchikomi, rather than really like a proper Jigeiko. What's really important is that I think it's important, especially for beginners, for seniors to encourage the juniors to, or the beginners to, understand that Jigeiko is not the competition, and it's not their chance to try and beat the sensei. It's their chance to try and perform what they've learned whilst under a different and new type of pressure. It's not a hitting game where where we rack up scores like that. That's kind of important, and it's easy because it's easy for beginners to misunderstand that. because it's not like it's not. We often refer to it as sparring, which it's not really. To be honest, it kind of is, especially like if it's like the Gokaku Geiko, which is like between two people who are of a reasonably similar skill level, then that's one thing. That is a bit more competitive. But when it's like you know, like Hikitate Geiko, so when the senior is practicing with the junior, they're supposed to be raising up their skill level rather than trying to offer them a competition. So you know, there is an important aspect there that's you know, really easy to misunderstand for beginners. You'll often see it when you can tell when they're getting it wrong, because when, as a senior, when you make a strike on them, they sort of like, oh, you got me, sort of thing. It's like, well, yeah, obviously. They've kind of, you sort of let them get the wrong idea. It's not their fault, of course, because they're the beginners, they don't know any different. But, you know, of course, yeah, you're not competing with them. You should be able to hit them at will, pretty much. Whereas it's not that, oh, I got you, you know, or you got me sort of moment. That's a teaching moment instead. But it's difficult. But I think you do need to try to encourage them to make attacks, and not care if they receive the strikes, especially when they're with the senior person. It's difficult though. People want to just enjoy it, which is, I understand that's part of it, but it's not a case of just sparring, just fighting. You know what I mean? Like, someone's just like 3 weeks into Borga and they're gonna try and like compete with someone that's like 4th dan or 5th dan. It's like, it doesn't make sense that they'd be able to do that. So okay, next one. Hi Andy, 2 questions about the approach on Shomen Uchi, Suburi, and also applied Kihon and Keiko. 1, should the Shinai tip come to a sharp, solid stop at the end, or should it whip a little bit through? I've seen both versions from different high dan sensei. 2, is it first lift the arms and then bring the whole body forward and cut, or lift the arms at the same time the feet and body moves forward? Also, both versions seen from high dan senseis. Cheers. Okay, so it's a really good question, because it's one of the things I think that's like most misunderstood in Kendo when you're learning Kendo. Because what you do is, like, you see one sensei say one thing and another sensei say another thing, and sometimes you see the same sensei, and this happens with me all the time, right? It's like, I'll say one thing when I'm teaching one thing at one time, and then the next time I'll say something that sort of seems to contradict it or is different. And it's not that it's right or wrong, you see. What it is it depends on the practice goal of the specific exercise at that time. So look, the first one about whether the Shinai should come to a stop. So what you're saying is, like, should it sort of stop like that, or should it like this, you know? It depends. Different senseis have different styles of it. I don't think it's a big problem to have a little bit of a sort of whip. I hesitate to say bounce, but it shouldn't be too extreme either, because obviously that's how you do the tenorichi, right? But you shouldn't do that if, like, you're hitting, you know, if you're hitting someone in Borga, yeah, that's normal, right? You should have that snap, yeah. But if you're, like, practicing the datotsu with someone that's not in Borga, yeah, then you should stop, because you don't want it to hit them, okay? But you know, different senseis have different style. But when you actually make the strike, yeah, it should have this bit. Yeah, that's part of the tenorichi. That's what's going to get that sae, that sharpness, that snap in the cut. And in terms of the style of Suburi, should you lift the arms and then step forward and cut, or should you lift as you step forward and down as you bring the left leg in? They're just 2 different styles of the same Suburi, and I use all 3. When I say all 3, I use 3 styles. All right, I use both of those, and I use another one when I'm teaching Kendo. The first one is the really basic one, really basic day 1 stuff. As you put the right leg out, lift. As you bring the left foot in, cut. All right, that's the first type. that I do, because it's really easy and simple. All right. Then the second type, the one I use the most in my own dojo, it's the sort of intermediate type one, is where I would have the students lift their arms first and then step forward and strike at the same time. The reason for that is now we're past the point of just coordinating our hands and feet together. What we're now looking to do is try to move our feet together as in a single rhythm. All right. So yeah, it goes right then left, but it shouldn't be 1, 2. It should be 1 like this. All right. So that Suburi is great for that. Lift up and then step forward and strike. Yeah, it makes everything come together into one cohesive strike with Kikentai no Ichi. So that's the one I use the most at the moment, all right, with my current group of students. Then the other one that I've started to touch on is a more advanced version, which is where you move your right foot first, but you keep your shinai in kamae. Yeah, you keep your shinai in kamae, and right at the last moment, you lift and strike as your left foot comes up. This way, so you keep this way and then this way. This is the hardest one, but this one is a more advanced version. I go over all of these actually in quite a few of my videos. The basic ones I've done in my sort of Suburi videos, and then the other ones like I think I did in like the Suburi along videos I did during the sort of when everyone was doing Kendo online. So go and have a look at those, and I sort of talk about them a little bit in that too. But it's not that like this is the right way, that's the wrong way. It's that this exercise or this version helps you improve this. This version helps you improve that, and then this version helps you improve something else. So it's not that, well, that sensei is right, that sensei is wrong. It's just that there's different goals behind what it is that they're teaching. All right, so just bear that in mind as well. Okay, last one. Hi, hello sensei, thank you for everything you do. I have a few questions about the symbol or engraving that people sometimes get on their dodai. Are there any rules or guidelines to this? Does it have to be a specific language, colour? Are there regulations? Thank you for information, and hope you and your family continue to be well. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so I'm not sure exactly what you mean, but a lot of people have like a kamon on the door, which is like a little symbol. I'll get one. Oof. Okay, I'm back. So this is one of my door, and you can see it's got a kamon here. All right, this is like a family crest. All right, this is my my wife's family. Their family crest. Her father gave me the permission to wear it, so I have it on a couple of my door. And that's what it is. It's not a language thing. Some of them do feature like kanji, like Japanese kanji, but most of them don't. They're sort of pictographic. Occasionally you might see as well some other stuff where there's like a symbol on the middle of the door. Often like schools have it, and it'll have like the school name written and stuff like that. There's no specific rules about any of that sort of stuff. And there's no really, specific rules about what language or colour it has to be or anything like that. There's no regulations about any of that. Obviously, you have to act sensibly. If it was like something offensive or like overly like, provocative or political even, it's probably just not a good idea to do it, right? So I wouldn't do that, but there's no necessary requirements for it. So generally the practice that you see in Japan the most is it might have some kanji on it, but usually it's like a school name, and it's because it's a school door. Okay, so that's that. I hope that answers everything. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you for staying with me to the end. Have a fantastic weekend, and I'll see you all next week. Bye bye.